Good morning. It is Friday, May 31st at just after 5 a.m. My name is Larry Cedar. I'm back with you for another session on scanning, spelled S-Q-A-N-N-I-N-G. Just a variation on the word scanning, S-C-A-N-N-I-N-G. Basically, we're scanning our body for muscular tension. By definition, scanning, as I define it, is the incremental release of muscular tension to achieve a deep state of physical, emotional, and mental calm. You want to be centered. Now, I just worked out, and I mention that because I'm a big proponent of exercise, because when you think about it, if you're trying to balance your being between a state of contraction and expansion, you want to be centered. Exercise is the perfect mixture of both. This is why exercise is so healing. This is why it can make you feel so much better. Because muscles, when they contract, are able to exert power. When you exercise, whatever form that is, you are contracting your muscles. So that's a form of contraction, but what's also required by the body during exercise is that you breathe. And you're forced to breathe because your body is using more oxygen, it needs more oxygen. You're forced to breathe deeply, which is expansive. So in the course of exercise, be it running, calisthenics, biking, weightlifting, whatever you choose, you are extending or testing the limits of this continuum. You're contracting very powerfully. You're expanding very powerfully. You're forced to. You have no choice. You can't exercise without breathing. And the harder you exercise, the more deeply you have to breathe. And that breathing is expansive. So when you're finished exercising, many times you feel calm. You feel very at peace because what you've done through this vacillation, this extensive vacillation between contraction and expansion, is you've stretched the parameters of your range. You've contracted mightily. You've expanded mightily, and you brought yourself back to a balance or center. So that's why exercise so frequently feels so good. You feel so good afterwards. In life, we tend to be overly contracted, or we don't tend to expand enough. We get restricted, closed off. We feel limited. We feel afraid. When you exercise, you see your range. You see what you're capable of, both contractually and expansively, and you feel more powerful. You feel your balance, you feel your capacity, you feel your abilities. So, exercise. Like I say with everything with scanning, for 5 minutes or for 5 hours. But start. Okay, so let's just again reiterate that scanning is the incremental release of muscular tension to achieve a deep state of physical, emotional, and mental calm. So I've talked enough, so let's start. We do the preliminary steps of scanning. We take a deep breath and we sit for stillness and silence at first for 15 seconds. Stillness and silence being the opposite of action and speech, which are contractive. Stillness and silence are expansive. So deep breath. Sit almost like a freeze frame. Don't move a muscle for 15 seconds, but continue to breathe. Deep breath. So, I just talked for a few minutes nonstop. There's a lot of talking out there in the world right now. A lot of people with opinions, with things to say. Those are all contractions. In taking just a mere 15 seconds of stillness and silence, I counteracted that contraction with expansion. I left my contractive state, which is where we tend to live. We tend to think that everything can be solved or fixed or dealt with through contraction. I left that and went to the opposite place of stillness and silence, which is expansion. And I discovered, lo and behold, that that's also a valid alternative. Going to a place of stillness and silence can solve a lot of problems, mainly because it takes you to a place of stillness, silence, peace, calm, and clarity. I practice this technique because I'm a very, very contractive person by nature. I developed this technique to save myself from myself. So I will never claim to have achieved enlightenment or come to a place where I'm always at peace. Far from it. I am constantly not at peace, frequently not at peace. And I will always, if I'm living a full life, be in a strenuous situation because I'm trying to challenge and take hold of my life. That will never leave. That's good. That's the sign one is living a full life. But what I have discovered is I can counter that by expansion and bring myself into balance. So I never get too far to the edge of the cliff. I can always come back to a place where I can think clearly and calmly. We're going to do this again. A deep breath followed by this time 30 seconds of stillness and silence. And I talked about with exercise, extending the parameters, the range of your contraction expansion. Well, we did 15 seconds. Now we're going to do 30. We're going to go in the course of this session more and more deeply into an expansive state. Deep breath, 30 seconds. As still as you can absolutely be. Freeze completely, but continue to breathe. 30 seconds. Deep breath. There used to be a game called red light, green light when I was a kid, and someone would be at a post on the street and we'd be about 100 yards away from them and they'd turn their back on us and they'd say green light, and we'd start to advance towards them until they turned around and said red light, and we had to freeze. If anyone moved, they were out. And you would get closer and closer and you would turn suddenly and say red light, and you had to freeze. If you moved a muscle, you were out. Well, that's the sort of thing I want you to do when you're still. Just completely freeze, as if you were a cardboard cutout. That sends a very strong signal to your body, mind, your soul that you have stopped doing. When you think about it, how many times a day do you sit in absolute stillness and silence? If you're anything like me, rarely. So it's different. And what we want to do is something different than what we've been doing all day. Contracting, thinking, doing. Contracting, thinking, doing. We want to stop that. That's scanning. Last step in the preliminary phase, take a deep breath. This time for 60 seconds, sit in absolute stillness and silence, in undetectable stillness. But continue to breathe. Deep breath. 60 seconds. Deep breath. And just register what, if any, changes you feel. Now, again, I started the session having just exercised. I was sort of wound up, I guess you could say. And now I feel more settled, more still, more calm. All I did was sit in stillness and silence. And think how odd that feels at any time in the day, especially when there's people around, to just stop doing everything and just sit in stillness and silence. Frequently, when I'm in a public place, either on a job or something, and I have a moment, I'll close my eyes and sit in stillness and silence. And it's interesting how uncomfortable it makes some people. What is he doing? Why isn't he talking? Is he asleep? And they all want to know what's going on. And if someone asks me, I'll tell them. But for some reason, we don't feel that we have permission to just sit in stillness and silence. It's our life. We can do whatever we want. We're free to do it whenever we want, and yet we don't choose to do it. We feel that in order to feel safe, secure, and it's a frightening world, we must constantly be doing, thinking, doing, thinking, doing, thinking. So practice this to get used to the feeling of sitting in stillness and silence, and know that that's a place you can go. That's a legitimate healing place. It's so simple. Stop whatever you're doing, take a deep breath, and sit for however long in stillness and silence. And put your full concentration into it. The reason I say don't move a muscle is I really want you to concentrate on not moving a muscle. That concentration is what will deflect all the thoughts that may be running through your mind. And if they continue to run through your mind, let them. Thoughts will continue. The contractive process will continue until you've moved into an expansive enough place that they just dissipate. Initially, there'll be a great deal of resistance. The body, the mind, want to keep contracting. That's what you're up against yourself. So we've done the preliminary phase. Now we'll go into what I call the nuts and bolts of the technique. As I described earlier, the incremental release of muscular tension. Squeeze your hands together. 3, 2, 1, release. That's it. Again, squeeze. 3, 2, 1, release. You just released muscular tension. This is always a good way to remind yourself what it feels like. 3, 2, 1, release. You did that. You have the power to release muscular tension. Make a fist. 3, 2, 1, release. Make a face. 3, 2, 1, release. So you have that power, you have that ability, you have that tool within you. So the practice of scanning enhances your ability to do that, so that you can do it on demand and bring yourself into a physically relaxed state, which in turn will relax the mind, which will then let go of all the thoughts which you're clinging to, and they will just dissipate. So let's start with the face, what I call zone 1. On my count, release all the tension you can in your face. 3, 2, 1, and release. That sensation, that release, is scanning. That choice to make a physical change is scanning. Just as you decided to sit in stillness and silence, moving, 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 stillness and silence. That choice, as well as this choice, 3, 2, 1, and release. That's scanning. Very, very, very simple. Deep breath. We're making very simple, very subtle, very incremental changes in our body. The reason I believe this technique is so powerful is because it's very accessible. It requires no study, no books, no lectures, no money. All it requires is that you choose to let go. And we do it repeatedly because we allow ourselves to make small changes, and they're cumulative. So we do it again and again and again for 2 reasons: to create the habit and also to build this expansive momentum. So you move from a contracted place to an expanded place. Zone 1, again, the face. 3, 2, 1, and release. And you'll feel it droop. Zone 2 is the top of the head. On my count, 3, 2, 1, and release. So on the count, you're focusing on the tension in that area. You're experiencing what those muscles feel like. On the release, you're letting that go. Top of the head, 3, 2, 1, and release. Zone 3, the back of the head, 3, 2, 1, and release. All 3, the face, 3, 2, 1, and release. The top of the head, 3, 2, 1, and release. The back of the head, 3, 2, 1, and release. And you'll feel it after a while. You'll start to experience that instantaneous shift from this to this, from this to this, from this to this. You'll start to see what that feels like, that shift. I snap my fingers because to me it's like flipping a power switch. I turn off the power. When the power has been turned off to a muscle, it just goes limp. When you've taken a drug, you go limp. It's what I call chemical expansion. So you're training yourself to do it naturally. And I will tell you, and I've said this before, I've been doing this for 10 years, for thousands of hours. It's still a challenge for me. When I lie in bed at night and I'm trying to get to sleep, I will typically scan as a way to get myself to sleep. And I would say for about 10 minutes, I feel no changes. And it's very frustrating. And I'd much rather think. I'd much rather keep contracting. It feels more secure. So I have this battle with myself. But through training, I've come to know that however much resistance I experience, there is something on the other side. So I will persist. And that's what you must do. If you find yourself going, this isn't working, I feel no relaxation, it's not working, just keep practicing. The face, 3, 2, 1. Top of the head, 3, 2, 1. Back of the head, 3, 2, 1. And you'll start to become more and more familiar with the sensation of release and more expert at it, and you will be able to induce an expanded state more readily. Zone 4 is the neck, 3, 2, 1, and release. We tend to think we can't control the tension in our bodies, why we go to masseuses, why we deep tissue massage, we take drugs, we drink, we smoke dope. We tend to think we need to do something external to expand. But you have the power within you. That's what scanning is, training yourself to use your own innate power to release muscular tension. The neck, 3, 2, 1, and release. Zone 5 is the shoulders. Let them drop the slightest amount. 3, 2, 1, and release. The shoulders, 3, 2, 1, and release. Deep breath. Zone 6, chest, stomach, front of the waist, what I call the plate of armor. 3, 2, 1, and release. You may feel, I don't want to release this tension. This is what's keeping me together. If I let go, God knows what will happen. I might feel something. I might be vulnerable. So it's a little frightening because our default position is holding, contraction as a defense mechanism. So you're up against, again, as you said, your own fears, your own self. Practice incremental, little bit, small amounts. It's cumulative. And as I always say, you can't contract and expand at the same time. So any amount of expansion is moving you in the right direction. So trust that even if you do 5 minutes, even if you're only able to move the dial this much, you have achieved expansion. And you will get better and better at it. Zone 6, plate of armor, chest, stomach, front of the waist. 3, 2, 1, and release. Deep breath. Remember, breath is expansive. It's hard. It's easy to remember that because you're expanding your lungs. Stillness and silence are expansive. Muscular release is expansive. Zone 7, down the back, past the waist and into the pelvis. 3, 2, 1, and release. And again, I always think of the pelvic region as having a sort of clenched sensation. You're going to unclench. Zone 7, the pelvis. 3, 2, 1, and release. And again, 3, 2, 1, and release. You're doing this, then you're doing this. You're doing this, and you've decided to do this. That's all you're doing. That's scanning, releasing muscular tension. Zone 8, down the legs, across the knees, and into the feet. Focus on your feet, however they're feeling, and on my count, release the most infinitesimal amount of tension from your feet. Let go. 3, 2, 1, and release. And again, 3, 2, 1, the feet, and release. And if you think of every part of your body, every part I've mentioned, the face, top of the head, back of the head, neck, shoulders, chest, stomach, waist, back into the waist, and down the legs and into the feet as a fist, which is clenched, all you're doing is unclenching. You're doing it repeatedly, you're doing it incrementally. And there's 2 things I will frequently do during the course of a session. 1 is take a moment to sit in stillness and silence and register where I'm at. And 2 is take deep breaths. And then register the change. What I always find is after 5, 10, 15, half an hour of scanning, everything's become quieter. The noise in my head has reduced. My body is less agitated. I feel more still, more calm, more willing and comfortable doing nothing. Nothing. Now, if you were to take a moment and using your imagination, strip away everything you know about yourself and your world, your name, your job, your achievements, your money, your hobbies, your worries, politics, religion, anything you can think about or make a decision about or have decided to delineate as being this, that, or the other. Strip all that away. As if you took a walk into the forest, left society, and wandered for a month. Who would you be? What would define you? If there was no one around to care who you were or what you did or your achievements, if there was no internet to go on, if you had no name, if you knew you didn't know what time it was, what day it was, what year it was, what would you be? Could you still be alive? Would you still exist? Obviously, yes. You would be a human being, a human creature. What would define you? Simply the breath you take, the beating of your heart, the sounds you hear, your thirst, your hunger, your warmth, your comfort, your cold. These physical sensations would define you. That's all you'd have as a reference, would be your sense of being. Could you exist in that state? Yes, you would need food. You would need companionship. Ultimately, you're a human being. You would need warmth, security. Yes, you'd find those things. But you could exist at your essence, at what I call the base self. This is the place that expansion can potentially take you to. A place where you've let go of everything and all you are doing is existing, feeling the beating of your heart, the glorious sensation of taking a breath and giving your body what it needs. A lot of times in life we make choices that force us to feel. We feel disconnected from ourselves, so we will drink or do drugs or do extreme activities or something that gives us a thrill because it makes us feel alive. I think we're all constantly in deep fear of losing ourselves, of not knowing who or what we are, and that's very frightening. So we identify ourselves through these activities. We feel things through the foods we eat, the drugs we ingest. It makes us feel alive. And it's very frightening when you don't feel alive, when you've lost touch with yourself. So when you come to a place of stillness and silence through expansion, and you really feel yourself, it's very comforting, it's very reassuring, it's very calming, because you know you don't need anything. In the moment, you exist. Doesn't matter what anyone thinks. Doesn't matter what you think. Nothing matters except that you're alive. And you take that calm and that sensation of confidence in knowing who and what you are as a physical being back into your contractive world, and everything just is better because you're balanced. You've not only based your existence on the things you achieve and do and think, but also on your mere existence. That's underneath everything, that sensation of just being a human being. So now you are centered. Now you can conduct yourself with a calm, secure feeling that you know who and what you are on a very base level. I'm a human being. I'm a human being. Nobody can take that away from me until I die. And then I'll turn to dust and then come back as something else. So that's why I scan. This is why I practice muscular release. For me, it is a tool, it is a technique for bringing myself into an expanded state, mentally, physically, and emotionally. That's why I do it. I got to be honest with you, I'm very excited about the potential of this technique. I'm not satisfied just doing it for myself. I feel a compulsion to share it, and that's why I do these sessions. It may or may not work for you, but I recommend you try. Stillness, silence, deep breaths, muscular release. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes a day, whatever you can infuse into your life will bring you that much closer to balance. And to generally, as I like to say, just feeling better, which is something we all want. That's it for today. Thank you for listening and hopefully practicing scanning, the incremental release of muscular tension to achieve a deep state of physical, emotional, and mental calm. See you next time. Thanks. Bye.